It's now time to introduce a local hero, but truly an international hero. UCLA Professor Judea Pearl is a computer scientist best known for championing the probabilistic approach to artificial intelligence and the development of the Bayesian networks. That's not why you know him. He was born in Tel Aviv when it was still in the British Mandate for Palestine. His parents were Polish Jewish immigrants. And he served in the IDF and then studied engineering and has been living here in the US since 1960. But Judea Pearl is not just an acclaimed professor of science and technology. Sadly, Judea was affected by a terrible terrorist atrocity. He is the father of the journalist Daniel Pearl, who was kidnapped and murdered by Islamic terrorists in Pakistan in 2002, just over 20 years ago. Judea Pearl is an incredible personality, full of vigor, full of joy. He may be in his 80s, but he outdoes all of us, even those much younger than him. He has been the moving force behind today's event, and indeed he's the moving force behind many things, and an inspiration to all of us. So please give a very, very warm welcome to Professor Judea Pearl.
Well, thank you all. And let's see. I would like to share with you the perspective of an 11-year-old boy, that's me, growing up in Israel before 1947, because I believe that my perspective is shared by many of my generation, which, by the way, it's in danger of being extinct. So I feel a responsibility to represent that generation. Like everyone in my generation, I grew up as the new Jew. Now, you have to realize what a new Jew is. This is a prince that believes that he owns the land on which he steps. It is well-fed, careless, chutzpahnik, and it means that he owns the paradise that his parents prepared for him, and he is not supposed to know about the ugly things in life, like anti-Semitism, like diaspora. Those ugly things of discrimination and persecutions are things of the past. Subject of books in the library, but have ceased to exist as we return to our homeland. And life was good for us. Even the British soldiers were good to us. They let us play with the bullets when they cleaned their guns on the pavements. Yes, we had curfews, and we had raids, and we had, when they searched our apartment, were for concealed weapons. They were always careful to return all the glassware into the cupboard in the best tradition of His Majesty, King George VI. The Arab kids were also nice to us. They played with us in the orchard groves and let us ride their donkeys, and didn't complain even when we beat them in the soccer field. Now, the first glimpse I got that my Shangri-La is less than universal, it was when new children joined our classroom. and they walk differently and they talk differently than us. These were refugees that start coming from Europe, and we were cruel to them because they weren't like us. We were told to treat them like we knew them for years and generations, because just in case the British police raid our school and trying to distinguish between the legal and illegal immigrants. Only later we understood what experience they went through. Now, serious anxieties started in 1945 because every household had family members who were either perished in Europe or got stranded in the displaced person camps in Europe. Day and night, the radio didn't stop calling names of survivors searching for their loved ones. Mador lechipush krovim, it was called. It means the department for search for survivors or for relatives. So-and-so from the city of so-and-so is searching for someone, anyone who has information about his family. Day and night, the radio advertised it. I was 11 years old. We learned to read at 6. By the time you are 11, you know how to read the headlines in the newsletters, and we can read things that our parents try to hide from us. I remember distinctly a few headlines. First, of course, were the V-Day. Who doesn't remember V-Day? But I remember this headline in the newspaper. Here's another one. 11 kibbutzim established in the Negev in 1946, a day after Yom Kippur. And this was very important because the idea of establishing Jewish presence in the Negev eventually turned out, influenced the map that was in the partition plan in the UN. Another headline. Dov Gruner was executed in Acre prison. This was not only in the headline, but our teacher had us stand for a minute of silence. 2 days later, 2 British sergeants were hanged in Netanya in retaliation. A repeated headline. Another immigration ship broke the British blockade. So many were caught, and so many were sent to Cyprus, and so many reached the shore on the shoulders of the Palmach Yam. This was the naval group of the Palmach. 120 ships tried to break the British blockade. About 100,000 people came illegally by this method. Another headline, Britain agrees, Britain disagrees, Britain agrees, and Britain disagrees to let 100 refugees enter Israel. And that came on and off. President Truman was instrumental in pressuring Attlee and Bevin at that time to let 100,000 refugees come to Israel. He didn't succeed. Another headline, that one I remember, Azam Pasha, the Secretary General of the Arab Leagues, announced 6 weeks before the UN resolution, he promised rivers of blood and a monumental massacre if the UN votes yes. And he explained to Abba Ibn in the Savoy Hotel in London why they have to do it. We don't really want to do it, you understand, but we have to. Why? because it's our honor. It's not a shame to fight, try to kill, and fail. But it's a shame not to try. That was the answer. On the night of November 29, I didn't go to sleep. No one did. As a matter of fact, I challenge you to find any Jew in my generation who doesn't remember the color of the radio he was listened to. Our neighborhood looked like I've never seen it before. The only thing I can equate it to is Yom Kippur, Ne'ilah, all standing together, rich and poor, friends and foes, awaiting the verdict of history. Mi yichyeh u'mi yamut, who will live and who will die. When the vote was finally over, my father screamed, "It's over, it's over, don't you understand? It's all over." And he grabbed me and he said, "You don't understand, it's all over." And I sensed both joy and anger in his voice. Joy because it's all over, and anger because I failed to appreciate the enormity of that day. Of course it's over, I said. We are all going to have a state. We have a state, so what's the big deal? You see, there was always a wall of misunderstanding between me and my father. I was brought up normal. He didn't. He went to a Polish school until he was 14. He understood what it means to be a Jew in a Polish school. I didn't. At that night, the wall fell down. I understood that I should not take freedom for granted, and he understood what it means to be normal. I now wish to reflect briefly on the process that led to the successful vote on November 29 of 1947. We ought to give thanks to so many people and so many countries and so many communities. Each vote was a miracle, and each deserved ample credit. But I would like to salute two special heroes of mine, whose pivotal role in the process usually is not given enough credit. The first is President Harry Truman. We all know the stories about his former business partner, Eddie Jacobson, who wrote to him in October of 1947, "Harry, my people need help, and I would like you to help them." And he wrote back to him and said, "When I come back to Missouri or to Kansas, I'll tell you why things are not as simple as you think." And Eddie Jacobson wrote him back, "Harry, I would like you to meet Chaim Weizmann. He needs one more audience with you." And he gave him the audience. And it was a critical audience. Because Truman found out that the State Department is planning to sabotage the vote of US in the UN. Sabotage in the sense that the ambassador, his name was Austin, I believe, Warren Austin, yeah. He will get a confusing instructions, and so will perhaps not be present, or perhaps will vote no. So Harry Truman made sure that the telephone line between the White House and the UN will be under his sole control, and he will be the last person to talk with the ambassador, Ambassador Austin. And that's what happened. And he was the last one to call and say, "Vote yes." We should also remember what made Harry Truman so sympathetic to the Zionist cause? Now, he had a business partner, Eddie Jacobson, but that was not it. He studied the Bible. And he saw himself as King Cyrus, the Persian king who allowed the Jews to come back to their homeland after the exiles and rebuild the temple. And he had a fight with the State Department, with George Marshall, who actually threatened him not to vote for him in the next election, which was very close. As you know, Dewey almost won the election. But Harry Truman defied George Marshall, and he voted yes. And guess how many minutes after the State of Israel was declared that Harry Truman picked up the phone and recognized the State of Israel? No, it wasn't 11 days. It wasn't 11 hours. It was 11 minutes. My second hero is the Yishuv, as we saw and as we heard from the choir. We must remember that the Jewish population in 1917 was barely 60,000, 6% roughly of the population. It's totally insufficient for statehood. Maybe national home, but not statehood. So only this tenfold explosion from 60,000 to 600,000 in 1947 made the idea of a state a viable option. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to state that the tractors of Beit Alpha and Hallel had as much role in ushering the state of Israel than the diplomats in Lake Success. The elaborate infrastructure laid by the issue before 1947 won the admiration of all the UN delegates to the area and compelled them to recommend partition. Finally, to those who claim today that the UN and the world powers had no right to draw borders against the wishes of the Arabs, I would say, relax. Israel was not established by the UN. It was already there when they drained the swamps of Emek Israel. And Shir HaEmek that we heard from the choir, Shir HaEmek sang today is our trust deed. Thank you.
Before we end,